Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to this session on cracking the code of trustworthy AI with SAS. I'm thrilled to welcome today three outstanding experts and specialists within the SAS team, global team. SAS, for those who might not know, is a global leader within the sphere of AI and analytics. And we are going to have so many things to talk about to really understand where we are going in the world of trustworthy AI. So let's welcome Josephine Rosen, Christy Boyd, and Pratibha Krishna. I would love for you ladies to introduce yourself in a few moments, but I want also to set a little bit of background on what we are going to talk about. So I think what we are aiming to address today is raising awareness about the potential opportunity for sure, but also the risk and biases associated with AI. We want to highlight the importance of ethical AI principles as well. Provide some practical insight on strategy on responsible AI practices, and discuss some real-world case studies and success stories. So let's get into some introduction with no further ado, starting with Josephine. So Josephine, welcome. And I would love for you to give us a bit of context around your role at SAS and what you are focusing on. And then I will ask the same question to Chrissy and Pratibha. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And hello, everyone. And hello, Sabina. It's really good to meet you. And I'm happy to see so many logged on to this event.
Yes.
So I'm part of SAS data ethics practice, where I work just like Christy here as our trustworthy AI specialist. Our team, the data ethics practice, is leading SAS responsible innovation efforts and approach globally, which means that we support and we guide our colleagues, but also our customers on their trustworthy AI journey. And internally, we enable our colleagues, we develop best practices and guidelines to help both SAS quickly respond quickly to regulatory changes, but also to make sure that we are consistent and coordinated globally. And I would say the overall mission really of our team is to make sure that our platform and our people and our processes are always human-centered, and that wherever our software shows up, it doesn't hurt anyone or anything. And this is critical both for moral reasons, of course, and the will to do good for those that we serve, but also business-wise, because if you want long-term growth, your AI must be trustworthy and reliable. You need to be able to minimize risks, and you need to really make sure AI can do its best work for everyone.
Absolutely. Chrissy, welcome.
Thank you, Sabine. Thank you for having all of us, and thank you everybody for joining this call this morning, this afternoon, this evening, depending on when you're at. My name is Christy Boyd. I am a senior trustworthy AI specialist within the SAS data ethics practice, along with Josephine. And part of my role also is similarly making sure that wherever our software shows up, we're not harming people, we're helping people, and really helping have the conversations and consider what does it mean to implement AI in a trustworthy, responsible manner. What are the frameworks that need to be in place? What is the culture that needs to be in place? What are the conversations that we need to be having internally and externally to make sure that we're succeeding, and just seconding everything that Josephine just said. So thank you all. Excited for the conversation.
Welcome. Pratibha, welcome.
Hello everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Pratibha Krishna. I'm an AI and ethics lead and a data scientist at SAS UK and Ireland. I don't directly work with Josephine and Christy, but I work with customer advisory. So I spend most of my time in understanding customer needs to bridge the gaps on their AI data science space. So my predominant focus would be financial customers, but my role goes from building a model to deploying a model or educating customers on their ethical value or needs. I'd say I definitely belong to the end-to-end analytical lifecycle, and I constantly talk about ethical AI. You call it passion, customer demand, or a philosophical standpoint. It's all about delivering trustworthy solutions, and that's what I'm here for.
Welcome, ladies, and thank you so much to be with me to actually go into the depth of a very important topic we've seen in financial services, in insurance, and but across industries where a lot of senior executives, I think, are challenging the way we are looking at AI, and because of responsibility, but also for reputational risk, are evaluating how best to implement artificial intelligence in their organizations today. So I'd like to start with Josephine with my first question. And Josephine, as an expert, right, in trustworthy AI, what are the key ethical principles and frameworks that organizations should consider today when developing and deploying artificial intelligence systems within their organization, particularly in high-stake decision-making scenarios?
Well, AI has played an important role in society for a while now, right?
Yeah.
But lately, the attention on AI and how fast it's evolving these days is just incredible. I think y'all agree here. At one of our recent events, one of the presenters really captured it when she said that AI quickly shifted from being just a nice add-on, like icing on the cake, to becoming the essential ingredient, the flour in the cake itself. It's everywhere now. It's deeply involved into crucial decision-making processes in our society, and if those decisions aren't fair and accurate, it could seriously affect things like people's health and safety and the economy and even our basic rights. So with that said, the key to any sustainable AI application is trust. And trust is a must here. And all AI must be trustworthy AI. It needs to be human-centered, it needs to be safe, ethical, and fair, and it needs to reflect our values as a society. And what those values are is a bit of a tricky one, though, because we all know that what is correct and what is right and even what is fair could very much vary between different contexts for different use cases, countries, and even cultures, right? So to agree on those values and putting up guiding principles, reflecting those values is a work in itself that we always advise every organization to start with when preparing for trustworthy AI. What does your organization mean by fair? And what values and principles do you stand for as a company? And where is it essential to be precise? And where do we maybe have a little bit more flexibility? And at SAS, we have agreed on 6 guiding principles that reflect our values, and that really function as our North Star, we usually say. And those are human centricity, transparency, accountability, inclusivity, privacy and security, as well as robustness. And we're putting a lot of effort into making sure that these principles are reflected in our people and in the way we operate, and of course also in our software platform. So trustworthy AI is more than just technology, but still, of course, also technology is definitely crucial. So to be able to activate a trustworthy system, you also need to have a solid governance framework and capabilities available in your AI platform, supporting this work throughout the AI lifecycle, from ideation, throughout data management and exploration, through model development and deployment, until the decision that comes out in the end, before it starts all over again, because this is a loop, a continuous, repetitive process, basically.
Yeah. And as you highlighted, it's all based on value, right? Value principles, transparency, fairness. And you said at the end, it's all about trust, right?
Yeah.
We start with trust, and then we actually make sure we are building a relationship with AI, which is respectful of the customer, our stakeholders, and our employee. So how can organization ensure transparency and interpretability
That's a difficult
AI
word.
models, yes, interpretability of the AI model, enabling stakeholders to understand decision-making process, but also, I think, identify potential risk, bias, and errors. Josephine.
Well, all you have to do is come to talk to me about Sasvaya. No, all of that is true. I can give you a little bit more detail maybe than that. like I mentioned when I replied to a previous question, this is a work that needs to be embedded at every stage of the AI life cycle and supported by capabilities enabling that. And of course, data fuels all AI, right? So that is the cornerstone. And you need to have high quality data and means to explore your data and to ensure data privacy in an efficient way. But more specifically, addressing your question around interpretability, to trust an output, and also in order to be able to judge whether it's fair or not, we need to be able to understand how the AI makes its decision. The types of models that AI are based on, machine learning models, are by definition black boxes, and if you don't have capabilities available to interpret them efficiently. But luckily today there are a lot of tools available to help us with that, even for the most black boxish models. And also, you heard of bias in AI. We've all heard of that by now, and you know that AI learns from historical data. So, for instance, if we were to develop an AI for automated decision making about, let's say, coverage in a claims investigation, we would let the AI train on historical data from a previous manual process where human investigators made decisions in a similar situation. And while the AI then learns to make the decisions in a similar manner, it will also learn the biases of those human decision makers, right? And it's one thing if one person makes an unfair decision every now and then, but when we then start to use this AI for automated decision making at scale, it can make a lot of decisions in a very short time, and which means that it can potentially very quickly go very wrong if we're not paying attention to this. So here it is also essential that we have capabilities for bias detection available in our platform, and also for any bias you identify, there should also be ways to mitigate. That could, for instance, be synthetic data generation. It could be an algorithm that would adjust the weights and optimize the trade-off between accuracy and fairness, exemplify with things I know that are available, just as a hint. And and another thing that is important and that makes it a little bit trickier is that unfortunately it's not enough to have an accurate model at the time of deployment, because models are, in a sense, a bit like milk. They expire. They need to be aligned to a present that is constantly changing. So that's a little bit difficult. So here we need to be able to track performance. We need to be able to track it with clear metrics, transparent, interpretable metrics over time, and preferably be able to set alerts and automatic retraining on models when they're not accurate anymore, so that they stay relevant also and stay accurate and stay transparent and fair also over time.
Yeah. It's interesting, actually, Josephine, because you mentioned black box. And I think when I talk to a lot of corporations and young ventures focusing on AI systems, now we are talking about white box modeling to actually be able to meet the regulatory requirements as well. Partly when we look at finance, right, where in finance, we need to be able to go back and provide the regulator with how we came about with decisions. But you also mentioned a lot of model, right? Machine learning. I guess people sometimes try to understand the difference between LLM models and foundational models. All these are new languages entering our lives today. So could you share examples as to how SAS has implemented responsible AI practices in its product services with its customers to provide positive impact to customer, stakeholders, and employees as well?
Yeah, trust is really at the core of SAS Via, which is our AI platform. And we say that we have built trustworthiness into our platform. We have made it trustworthy by design, so that we really can empower our customers to develop and deploy and govern also trustworthy, responsible AI. And I mentioned a minute ago a number of capabilities that you need for this. And these are, of course, also examples of capabilities that we offer in our products, in our platform. Then, as many of you also probably know, SaaS is also a service leg where we do advisory and consulting. So we're also working with supporting and guiding our customers hands on with this journey. So as they implement responsible, trustworthy AI. And SaaS has customers all over the world and in all industries. But since I know that many of you have an insurance background, I could
Yes.
maybe also take a use case that is related to that, right? So insurance, there is a risk of negative consequences for the individual's economy or fundamental rights if there are inaccuracies and bias in the AI models used, for instance, for risk assessment or pricing. These are the two use cases that are brought up in the AI Act too. Here, SaaS capabilities can help customers, even if they use complex black boxish model types, to be transparent, to detect and mitigate bias, and to be able to develop accurate models where the output is based on fair premises and not being discriminating on, for instance, sensitive variables such as gender or such as age or ethnicity. And this is, of course, something that has a positive impact on our customers, both from a moral perspective, but also in terms of business and reputation. And also, another example, for instance, in healthcare, which I think even if you're in another industry, everyone can relate to. Here we have many examples where SaaS trustworthy AI capabilities makes it possible for doctors to make safe, transparent, and accurate decisions under quite sensitive circumstances. So, for instance, one hospital is using a model developed with SaaS to help doctors decide whether it's safe to send home a patient after a major surgery. And here it is, of course, super important that the decisions are not only transparent, but also safe and reliable, so that both doctors and patients can trust and feel safe that it wouldn't hurt or harm the patients when they are at their most vulnerable. So apart from the safety aspects, this naturally also have a positive impact on productivity, as it would free up hospital beds and it would free up also the time from the doctors. So those are two examples. Thanks.
Yes, absolutely. Interesting enough, what I see in insurance right now, big area of interest is certainly risk assessment, underwriting, actuarial capabilities. That is probably where I get most of the questions today around how to use AI, analytics, generative AI, but also in the claim space, legal claims. There are some amazing capabilities coming to market to actually help reduce the repetitive task of legal teams to actually start thinking through claims files, legal files, and start processing them much faster. So thank you so much, Josephine, for joining us. So everyone, make sure to connect with Josephine on LinkedIn. But also, if you have questions, make sure to ask your question now as I move to my next speaker. So I'm coming to Chrissy. Thank you for being with us, Chrissy. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Sabine. Thank you.
So from your perspective, Chrissy, as a technology ethicist, and I'm pronouncing the word very slowly so that I cannot mix my S and my C's.
Maybe that's okay.
What role do governance structure and policies play in promoting trustworthy AI today within an organization? And how can organizations all around the globe can establish effective oversight and accountability mechanism internally?
Yeah, of course, the role of governance really is essential. I like to say that if you have a vision without a plan, you essentially have a pipe dream. And so if you as an organization are saying, well, we want to be responsible, we want to use AI in a responsible manner, we don't want to perpetuate harms necessarily, But if you say that without a specific plan, without a plan for governance, without a strategy of how you're going to be approaching it, you're likely not going to be successful, right? You just have a big dream and an aspiration. And so governance, both from a structure and a policy and a culture perspective, is essential, because governance is going to help you shape that approach. And it's going to both make sure that everybody in your organization is, as they say in the US, singing from the same psalm book or reading from the same page. Everybody's approaching AI from the same perspective, both individuals who may be internally motivated themselves to do the right thing, but also individuals who might need a little bit of extra assistance or extra context provided as to what needs to be done, how it needs to be done. And so when you think about that governance structure, it's essential to be strategic and explicit about what's your oversight capabilities and mechanism, who's responsible, what are we trying to achieve, what are the values, to Josephine's point, what are the values that we want to promote? Do you want to be an innovator in your space? Do you want to be extremely compliant? Do you want to be human-centric? What is the value that you want to be promoting as an organization broadly? And then how does that apply to the AI world? So from an oversight perspective, if you don't have your processes updated, it's not going to work day to day, right? You can have the best policy written, the best strategy written, but if all that means is that as an employee, I have to go into my LMS and click read and accept, and that's it, that's not going to work. So what are the points in your day-to-day operations that you can actually embed that strategy and that governance? And of course, we can talk about the technology. We are a technology company, but I want to highlight the culture aspect of it too. I think having individuals and having your employees bought into and understanding the responsibility that they have as users of AI, as developers of AI, is really important too, because we tend to buy into things that we understand. It's a lot to have a conversation if we're not speaking the same language, right? So having the conversation about governance, setting up a strategy for governance is essential.
Yeah, I've seen, depending on organization and maybe innovation maturity, I've seen organization being fearful about AI analytics and recent development, but also others being highly encouraging and developing the framework and the tools and the system, the cultural environment to welcome this type of development, which takes me actually, Chrissy, for you, what is the difference between humanizing AI, right? AI humanization and human-centric AI, which are, I understand, very different.
I love that you asked this question because, this is my personal soapbox currently. I will say, so you mentioned individuals that have a fear of AI. I want to normalize that, I think, to an extent. So AI, to Josephine's point, has been around for a little while. We've been using AI. It's been embedded into our society for a while. But fear of things is a natural response to something we don't understand, right? And so if you're on this call or if you're on this listening to this talk and session and you're scared of AI, I just want to normalize some of that, but then also encourage you to push through and learn more a little bit and understand more about how's AI impacting you. So this is the soapbox, the humanizing versus human-centric. Human-centric AI really prioritizes the individual. Humanized AI makes AI an individual, is the shorthand of it, right? So when we talk about a human-centric AI, it's really recognizing that artificial intelligence is a tool for us to use for whatever purpose it is. For the purpose we believe at SAS, that purpose should always be promoting the agency and the equity of individuals. So providing individuals more opportunities to be responsible for their lives, to have a choice, to have an opportunity, to have that agency. Humanized AI is the Schwarzeneggers, the Terminators, all kind of the Hollywood version of it, where we start having a conversation about whether AI is an individual, whether AI has rights. And I think while that's a conversation we can have, there's a lot more pressing conversation to have about human centricity within artificial intelligence. Are we creating that tool just because it's fun and fancy, or are we creating it with the purpose of benefiting society, benefiting individuals at the end?
Yeah. As you were talking about humanization versus human-centric, I was remembering this paper from Harvard Business School, which was research conducted with BCG, where we had centers and cyborgs. So I would ask everybody online, are you a center or are you a cyborg? It would be interesting to see who is whom, right? Because some are using it every day, every minute of the day. Others is in and out, which will be the center to actually augment their work. So, Chrissy, when we look at that, right, as AI becoming more prevalent across everything we do, we saw the announcement where potentially we are going to have a device which is going to be AI driven between Sam Altman and Johnny Ivey. Can't wait to see what that might be. What does it mean from an industry perspective, right? We work with retail, we work with insurers, we work with financial services institutions about what is the potential risk and challenges in terms of adoption of the technology.
Mm-hmm. There's some broad risks, I think, that apply regardless of the industry that you're in. And then within the industry, within the context, you can get more specific and more tangible, if you will. So broadly speaking, bias, intentional, unintentional bias, recognizing that, I guess I should take a step back. All AI models have a bias. AI models inherit whatever we build into them as individuals and as humans, and bias is not necessarily, Pratibha, keep me honest here, is not necessarily a bad thing. In some cases, you need to have a model that's going to be biased towards a specific direction or a specific demographic because that's the use case you're applying it for, right?
Mm-hmm.
For example, in financial services, conversation I have a lot is if you have a loan program, maybe it's a small business loan program that's specifically targeting women in Rwanda, making things up here, well, you're going to want to make sure that your model is biased towards women in Rwanda. So recognizing that there is going to be bias, we need to know what the bias is. We need to be intentional in mitigating the wrong kind of bias, the bias that we don't want to be perpetuating. And also, AI models can age. So recognizing that you need to be updating your data, you need to be keeping your models up to date, keeping them accurate to the context that you're currently using. For the insurance context, I'll tell you, if, for example, you have a claims model, automobile claims or accident model that was created based on data in 2018, California, well, that's not going to work well in 2024 in Australia because we've got global events that have changed the context of how people drive, right? We have a completely different geographical context that we're talking about. So recognizing both the need for relevancy, but also a locality, I guess, if you will, of the model and of the data that you're using as well. So those are some of the big broad risks. Over automation as well. So forgetting to include a human in the loop and forgetting to recognize that there might be outliers and there's often instances where we need human review of the outcome. Those are some of the broad risks. And then as you go into the specific contexts of insurance, of financial services, you can get more and more specific with the risks as well.
Yeah, interesting, because when we start looking at risk and biases, hallucination, discrimination, right? Those are issues we hear a lot around what is happening today with artificial intelligence. But I think as we talk about humanization, human centricity, it is also about having that individual being the checkpoint to make sure whatever comes out of the organization is fair, is trustworthy, right? And it's transparent as well. So we talked about risk and challenges. What about the benefit you see within that sphere? Actually, Chrissy, how do we protect individual privacy and data rights as well?
Mm-hmm. I think of it as I imagine a visual of a triangle. Bear with me here. One side of it is the acceleration part. So AI helps us make decisions faster, right? New computing capabilities, new computing power. We can now, let's say in the insurance context, we can process through claims a lot faster. We can process through potential fraud instances a lot faster than an individual would be able to do. So we're accelerating how quickly we're making decisions. And that's a good thing, right? That's efficiency, that's productivity, that's time to resolution shortened. So acceleration is one part of it. At the same time, as we're accelerating the decision making, we're also amplifying something. It could be something bad, it could be something good. And that's the part that I think is really important to lean into and to recognize that if you already have strong privacy capabilities, if you already have privacy respecting technology or privacy enhancing technology, PETs built in, then you might be amplifying that as well. If you don't, though, and if you already have a system that's not preserving privacy and that's not minimizing data collection, for example, for the purpose, or it doesn't have the appropriate data discard setup, then you might be also amplifying that. And so recognizing as you're using AI, do you have the basic privacy tenets set up? Do you have a framework for privacy preservation and a privacy policy that has been reviewed, that meets both industry standards and your organizational ethical standards and expectations? And then how does that translate into what you're ultimately doing and how you're using that solution? So acceleration, amplification, the bottom part of the triangle and kind of the base for all of this is really the accountability. So who's responsible for making sure that we know what we're accelerating, we know what we're amplifying, who's going to be having those conversations, who's going to be responsible for the risk mitigation aspect of it, and identifying, are we benefiting? Who are we benefiting here? Somebody's being benefited, hopefully. Who is it? And are we comfortable with what's happening here?
Yeah.
So that's how I think through personally, how do we balance the benefits, the amplification or the acceleration? And what are we amplifying? How are we managing and mitigating the risks that we have in our system?
Yeah, great framework, which I think everybody probably here listening to us should actually consider and actually apply that 2x2 metrics and start looking at where things sit within their organization. Well, do you have any use cases, examples to share with us, Chrissy?
Oh, absolutely. I could do this all day. I'll give you a personal example first. Let's talk about, since we're in the insurance world. When I first got my license, I got my first car, I just got my license, I was in 3 accidents in a month. Now, only one of them was my fault, but I had 3 almost back-to-back accidents. The first one was my fault, transparently, and the car was totaled. And then back-to-back, I had 2 times while I was in the rental where I got hit by somebody else. And so, as you can imagine, that immediately flagged a fraud case. That immediately, I got a note on my insurance policy, and I had to have a full conversation, and they started investigating for insurance fraud. And so I think a use case to consider is insurance fraud. How do we know when is somebody trying to game the system and get an advantage from policies and trying to reap benefits that they should not be collecting, versus when do you have a brand new driver that just has really, really bad luck, right? So I think AI can help us identify some of those patterns. What I benefited from in that context, and I think is an example of responsible innovation, is that even though my policy got flagged and I knew that I was being investigated for fraud, I had an opportunity to talk to an individual, to a worker, to an insurance agent, and explain to them and send them the information to be able to prove that, I promise, I'm not trying to collect fraud, I'm just trying to get to work, right? I think that's an example of thinking about, okay, AI can make us make those decisions better and faster, and it can help us identify fraud cases more efficiently, but we can also do it in a way where we set up guardrails in moments where if somebody gets flagged inappropriately, if it's a false negative or false positive, I always get confused with the two. But if somebody gets flagged inappropriately, there's a way for them to
False positive.
Exactly. False positive. Thank you. So I think that's one of the examples I think about a lot when I talk about insurance, is kind of the fraud aspect of it and how do you flag those cases.
Yeah, big area. And I think with the advancement we are seeing right now with AI, I guess we are going to find far more techniques and capabilities to actually focus on the customer experience, right? Driving really nice customer experience and really identifying true fraud. So thank you so much, Chrissy. Again, if you want to connect with Chrissy, please make sure to connect with Chrissy here on LinkedIn, and also make sure if you have any questions, do not hesitate to share them with us here. So now I am going to move to Pratibha. Pratibha, welcome, and thank you to be with us this afternoon or this morning.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
So my first question to you, Pratibha, is, in your opinion, what are the most significant barriers to the widespread adoption of responsible artificial intelligence practices out there? And how can these barriers can be overcome by large companies, by small companies? I think everybody is in the same boat right now.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the barriers itself can be classified in terms of technological, your organizational or regulatory strategies when it comes to adoption of responsible AI. The major hurdle, I think, is the lack of awareness and understanding. And I think that can be handled by education, awareness campaigns, workshops, training sessions. I personally have run a handful of sessions in the last few years for financial customers to demonstrate why considering responsible AI is important. I think apart from this not fully understanding the whole RAI practices entail, the other one could be that there's a belief that there's a comprehensive changes, or it could be that there's comprehensive changes on the data handling or model development that they have to go through while adopting to these kind of practices, which can appear a bit daunting. And that can be handled in many ways, having echoing to Chrissy's point on establishing frameworks for RAI, clear guidelines, or bringing in subtle changes. For instance, the ability to flag early on the data quality issues. For instance, if you like a basic example, if you have gender in your data popping in, the ability to flag them. I mean, subtle changes like that can have a pretty good impact on adopting or managing those barriers.
Yeah, absolutely. So what does, good AI model design looks like for you, Pratibha? How do we avoid biases when we think about trustworthy AI models? Are there limitations of what we can do today?
Well, yeah, it's more like a good model design, in my view, is more on certain principles like being effective, being efficient, have ethical elements, and most importantly, align to societal values and meet user needs. So for me, it's all those boxes that needs to be ticked. And when it comes to the ethical part, which goes hand in hand in terms of avoiding bias, I think having a diverse, good representation of data is a good start. Have regular auditing and testing, like to Josephine's and Christy's point. And I think for me, having robust data governance in place is quite important. We all talk about data governance. And for me, there's also this element of consistent stakeholder engagement to gather feedback. I think that's absolutely vital. So all those elements probably sum up on having a good AI model.
Oh no, did we lose Sabine?
Do we have Sabine?
Yeah, I'm here.
There you are.
Hello.
So yes, real time internet, everybody using computing power, everybody on ChatGPT. That's what's happening nowadays when we are on live streams. So my next question to you, Pratibha, which actually Josephine and Christy addressed, right, is around culture and ethics in AI. And I would love for you to also share with us your point of view as to how organizations can ensure that their employees are trained and equipped to develop and use artificial intelligence responsibly. Any case study you can share with us, maybe?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think fostering culture of ethical AI is a continuous journey. The steps to be taken on, as I said, the education, awareness to ensure that employees are getting training, specific training programs. In fact, like what does ethical AI entail? There's so many people talking about ethical AI, but what exactly does it mean? Do we show graphs? Do we show elements? Do we break it down? Or what are the responsible AI elements that they should be aware of? Or something straightforward like what is EU AI law that is currently that people are talking about, or any laws that are going to come in the other parts of the world. For me, and I'd say anyone using a smartphone is a consumer of AI, so nobody can step back here saying this is not my problem, because we are all in this together, and this is not just for technical audience. So these training programs have to be set for all levels of audience. And I think employees should be very familiar with what trustworthy AI is. What is their organization doing to produce trustworthy, responsible AI solutions? I mean, you don't have to go way into the technicalities and explain a SHAP model or a LIME model, but to be aware of elements of trustworthy AI like quality checks, or be able to say that the models that are produced are validated and accountable, really, to clear the cloud on what AI or ethical AI are looking like. So again, in the future or going forward, this is going to be scrutinized by both regulators and the public. So it's better to be aware of all those elements, I think. I've used in use case perspective, I think financial customers again, because that's my play area. So there's specific use cases that the current models are getting through responsible AI toolkit to understand how they can make it better, how can they expand their current flagging data sets to broader correlated features. What if someone, if it can't be a direct bias, it could be an unconscious bias. So how do we actually track those? So all those are day in, day out conversations for me with customers.
So you just highlighted a point we have not yet addressed, Pratibha, which is regulation. So what roles do industry standard regulators, external oversight on organization play when we think about trustworthy AI, and how can organization make sure that they are compliant all the time? Because we have seen so many stories, even, when I engage with people on LinkedIn, there's a lot of fear, right, around doing it wrong, but also, regulators are not the fastest, often I hear. But so how can we get all this ecosystem of players to play good with one another?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think industry standards, regulation, external oversight, all of these play a huge role in improving the quality of AI models, really. They set a benchmark for ethical design and development, and they go on to, it's more to protect individuals and society. It's to foster sort of healthy competition as well, because we are all in the business as well at the same time. I think to have organizations stay compliant while driving sort of innovation is to have the ability to be proactive, have early engagements with regulatory bodies, have an ethical mindset from the start, the beginning of your AI question. When you start all those discussions, you should start thinking in an ethical way and invest in transparent AI process. I think that's going back to Josephine's and Christy's point. Have that journey. And these are all some good places to adapt and stay compliant while driving innovation at the same time, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we've talked about what is happening today. We're realizing that things are moving super fast right now. So what emerging trends do you see, Pratibha, and future development in the field of responsible AI, trustworthy AI, we need to pay attention to right now to be always prepared to the advancement which is coming to us, which is going at a very fast pace right now?
Yeah, I think I've already sort of mentioned that the EU AI Act here in the European side, that's a big one to look out for. So not just the EU AI Act, any act globally regarding to AI is something that we should be aware of on the regulations. So understanding and expectations of law that's going to come through. And there is also with the EU AI Act, there is an implementation time window as well to help you prioritize, prepare for the journey. I think every organization is different and has different level of maturity in terms of adapting and implementing all these processes. So to be aware of all of these happening is step one. And I mean, where we are supplied with abundant of information online on all these elements. If not, you have experts talking to about it. So, and the general mindset, like I said, in terms of investing more on explainable, transparent AI, keeping your solution ethical by design. These are the things that you can just start off with, doesn't have to wait, or maybe align with what regulatory bodies say. And that's a good checklist for you to start off and have your own customized framework for responsible AI in the end, I think. Yeah.
So thank you, Pratibha. Again, make sure to connect with Pratibha on LinkedIn if you want to see some of those questions as well answered. And thank you for your question. We have some questions coming through. And so I will ask you the same question to each one of you, actually. One of the main questions coming through is, how do we teach AI values? And the speaker or the person in the audience is asking for clarity as to how we teach an AI system what our company values are. Who wants to start?
I can start. Oh, you can start. You decide, Sabine.
So let's start with Josephine, and let's go straight to Christine.
We can probably fill in for each other a little bit, but I think, when it comes to teaching the AI what a company values are, the first thing that is important is that we know ourselves what a company values are. So we need to, like I mentioned in my previous reply, that we need to sit down and agree on what those are. And when we do that, we need to sit down with, a diverse crowd from different parts of the organizations having different roles, so we get all certain perspectives in shielding from bias in that sense. And then it's all about setting thresholds. For instance, how I mean, what is acceptable in terms of accuracy for us for a certain use case, for instance, and how equal does it have to be in terms of performance and prediction in between different groups, like in between gender, in between age, or whatever? Should it be different? It's all about deciding and being clear upon those things for ourselves, and then teaching the AI the same things, both with thresholds. And if one thing is that we want to be or need to be, as we should be, transparent and interpretable, we teach the AI through enabling for our AI to be interpretable, like having capabilities there to explain the output, for instance. And to be accountable means that we are paying attention to bias, we're paying attention on how to mitigate the bias, and so on. It's all about, fulfilling your guiding principles that you agreed on, right? You can probably continue there, Christy.
Yeah, I can build on that a little bit too. Just an example wise, I think when we say teaching an AI company values, people get confused. So like, what does that mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
How does that translate? How do you mathematically qualify fairness, for example, if inclusivity is a value? And we do that already in a way, if you think about it. Every organization has a framework for hiring HR talent, right? And as you're bringing in candidates, you already have a way where you're quantifying and assessing. You're implementing a value, an organizational value, into what your recruiting pool looks like, or into what your candidate pool looks like. So as an example, if you're using AI to source candidates for open positions, open requisitions within your organization, well, you can set, and you likely are already doing this, setting a threshold and saying, well, we want to have this kind of representation. We want to have the candidate pool. You can say you want to have the candidate pool represent the current employee pool. That's something I've seen done. And then you are essentially stating a value of, we believe our company is diverse. We want to keep mimicking what the company is doing. You might have a value for actually having a more diverse candidate pool and bringing in more individuals of different demographics, of different perspectives, et cetera. And so that can be something that you set then. As you're looking at your candidate pool, you say, well, we think we're not pulling in enough women, or we're not pulling in enough folks with disabilities that we want to have applying. And so that's, I think, a very tangible example for us to look at and say, okay, we as an organization have a value. That value might be continuing the current candidate pool we have, or the current employee pool that we have, or we might want to be increasing our diversity, et cetera, and taking that value and quantifying it, right? Putting in specific numbers and specific metrics that are going to be representative of that value. Pradeep, I'll throw it at you now because you're the more technical one of the three of us.
No, I think you've summarized it beautifully, Christy and Yasmin. I think the elements like we still have business values that are embedded in solutions anyway. So transferring company values and how you actually face it down in terms of rolling out responsible AI solutions that's similar to doing a business role, I suppose. Have them in place to filter it out accordingly. But yeah, absolutely agreed. Especially in the terms of recruitment example, I think that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
I would just like to highlight that it's so super important to make sure that you have diversity when you decide what those thresholds should be and what those values that we want to implement should be, because otherwise there is a risk that we also introducing new bias, right? So if it is just this little white middle-aged men group that decides on the thresholds, then we're likely introducing new bias into the AI. So bring everyone into that, preparation and work before you start teaching the AI.
Yeah, and what you just mentioned, Josephine, reminds me of my experience, playing with text, video, and picture, where you can see the bias in the systems which are already there. And so therefore, it forces you to learn how to prompt effectively to get the answer you are seeking. And so for us, it's probably looking at AI with a conscious, right? And a question I have for you and for people here listening to this discussion, is responsible AI boring? I hope not, right? Building AI conscious is probably what we need to do today. Right, ladies?
Absolutely. I think, sorry, go on.
No, go ahead. I was just wondering what the question was. Is AI conscious? Was that the question?
Yeah. Is AI conscious? People sometimes are scared to discuss AI, the excitement of AI. Everybody is so excited by things. And I was seeing earlier just a little video of a singer which replaced himself with the Joker. Right now, you can swap your physical appearance as well, just with the video capabilities which are out there. So we like talking about these exciting things, but is responsible AI boring? Is building AI with conscious not just a requirement, but part of the values of a business? And that is a question I'm asking to you all three as well, ladies.
For me, I think I've had people asking me this question before. For me, it's far from being boring. I think responsible AI is fascinating, an essential frontier in the development and deployment of AI technologies. It has a huge philosophical standpoint, a moral standpoint for understanding ethical dilemmas, how to address them, because we don't have a rule book. So how do we embed that in technology? I think AI with conscience is basically considering collectively what's good for the society and to balance profits for businesses, for me.
Yeah. What about you, Chrissy?
I don't think responsible AI is boring right now. I think it's an exciting conversation personally. Obviously, I have a bias. I will say I would love it if in the future the topic of responsible AI was so familiar for everybody that we didn't have to talk about it anymore. What I mean by that is you've heard us use the electricity example. AI is kind of similar to electricity in the sense of it's impacting how we're accessing each other, how we're working, etc. But I would love it if eventually we have such a level of familiarity with how to do AI responsibly that we don't need to discuss it just in the same way. Like we're not going to have a call talking about don't stick your fingers in an outlet because it's going to electrocute you, right? I would love it if eventually we get to a point where AI and ethical AI and considering human centricity in AI is so intrinsic to all of us that we can talk about how do we benefit each other more. We can move on to the next point of the conversation. Similarly, like with electricity, we now talk about grid management. We don't talk about don't blow dry your hair in the shower, right?
Yeah, Josephine, anything else you want to add?
Not really. I can just echo that. It's definitely not boring. It's, it's fascinating, like Pratibha said, and, it's one of the most important topics of our time, definitely.
Yeah. And so when we look at, again, as we are dovetailing toward the end of our conversation, so one new frontier of scientific discovery and technological advancement can we unlock through the power of artificial intelligence? Maybe I can start with you, Josephine.
I mean, it's a lot, right? AI has massive potential, and I think what's important is that we do have a responsibility to utilize that, because there are urgent challenges that needs to be solved, like climate change and diseases that need treatment and so on. I believe this is an important aspect of responsible AI that we easily forget. Responsible AI also means that we have a responsibility to use AI where appropriate and to actually address our time's most pressing global challenges.
Yeah. Chrissy, Pratibha, any additional points you would like to add? Maybe, Chrissy, do you want to start?
Sure. I think what I'm excited about is I think AI is going to help us identify more patterns in the health space that we may not have been able to identify previously. Right now, it's such a tedious process to identify new markers or new symptoms of a condition or a disease. And I think AI is going to empower us so much more to be proactive about healthcare and identify potentially new patterns or new symptoms that are going to be indicative of a condition or a disease or something coming to a specific demographic. I think that's going to be really powerful that AI is going to enable us to do.
And Pratibha?
I definitely echo with both the ladies. I think especially healthcare, with the pandemic that we've just gotten over and trying to do that, and generative AI combination in terms of how we use AI has just evolved even better. So healthcare, retail, public, government, you name it, it's going to impact in every industry. Like how I mentioned that AI is consumed by everyone, the industry that's getting used with AI or getting benefited with AI is everywhere. So you can't pinpoint a particular industry saying that's going to have a better boom, but how it definitely adds more value in AI for good, healthcare, medicine, more on that side as well, because it's straightforward on saving lives.
Yeah, and societal aspect is really critical, and also making sure that not only developed countries have access to all this great technology, we also think about emerging and developing countries as well. So I want to highlight that SAS Innovate, right, is taking place at the ARIA in Las Vegas in just a week time from now. So if there's anybody still not with a ticket, make sure to get that ticket. And particularly, I want to echo this to the SAS ecosystem partners, because I've been spending some time talking with the team. So bring your customers, meet the team, start understanding how to use SAS Via, and see some of the showcases which are going to take place at the ARIA Las Vegas, because there's a lot of things, I know there's a lot of things which are going to be unpacked in just a few days' time. So I want to say thank you for your questions, and I want to say thank you very much for everybody for attending that session. Very valuable conversation. This is a wrap, and I hope that everybody will actually remember that responsible AI is not boring, right? It is a way for us to identify the key values we have within our organization, but also within the way we work every day. It's about transparency, it's about ethics, it's about also trustworthiness, as we talked about, but it's also about explainability, being able to be transparent and making sure every single stakeholders really understand what we are doing with AI. It is about also valuing others, but also understanding how to apply amazing principles. And now companies like SAS are implementing this into their technology. So thank you, Josephine, Chrissy, and Pratibha for joining me today. So grateful to have this conversation. It's going to be reused and reviewed on LinkedIn, which is very exciting as well. There will be more questions, I'm sure, in the comment, and we are going to spend some time reviewing the comments and answering all the questions we see. So please make sure to connect with Chrissy, Pratibha, and Josephine, so who actually look forward to engaging with you. So ladies, thank you, and bye for now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Ladies. Thank you, everyone.